Welcome in, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at Further and Better's TV, film, and media industry international news roundup this week from Tuesday, February 11th, 2025.
Wow, that's a mouthful.
Right. It is a lot. So we're going to
break it down.
break it down. And you're here to help me break it down today.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
I'm so glad. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of start with Australia, because there are a couple things in the news roundup this week that were about Australia. And I feel like there's this really interesting duality happening.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of reflected in the two stories we're going to talk about.
Okay. Well,
So the first one
lay it on me.
is Stan Originals' Invisible Boys,
Okay.
which is based on a novel of the same name by Holden Sheppard.
Yeah.
And it tackles these really big questions of identity and belonging, which are very universal themes.
Yeah.
But it does it with a distinctly Australian setting.
Yeah.
It's set in Geraldton, Western Australia.
Cool.
And I was reading a little bit more about this. They actually filmed it on location there,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was really cool.
That's awesome.
So it's interesting because we have this story about finding your place, finding your people,
Yeah.
and kind of coming of age.
Right.
And then on the completely other side of the spectrum, we have the apple cider vinegar documentary on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
That's about Bill Gibson's wellness empire, which was all based on a lie.
Yeah. A fabricated wellness empire.
Exactly.
It's wild.
It is wild. And so it's
Yeah.
these two very different sides to Australian storytelling right now.
Totally. And I think that it speaks to their ability to tell really complex stories and not shy away from some of these really complex topics.
Right.
And, one thing that I found interesting is that The Invisible Boys, kind of explores this theme of finding your true self.
Yeah.
And then you have this documentary that is all about the dangers of creating false narratives.
Right.
And so I thought that was a really interesting parallel between the two.
Right. Well, and especially because there is such a hunger right now globally for authenticity and real stories.
Absolutely.
So it's on the one hand, you have this really beautiful story.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you have this cautionary tale
Right.
about
Exactly.
what happens when we
What happens when we stray from that?
stray from that, and we
Well, what happens when,
yeah.
people are taken advantage of and mislead?
Right. Well, and especially in the age of social media,
Oh, yes.
things can go viral so quickly. It
Yeah.
makes you really stop and think about
Yeah.
the responsibility that comes with having a platform.
And the accountability.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So anyway, I just thought it was really fascinating to see those two very different stories coming out of Australia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Should we move on to something a little...
Let's completely shift gears.
Okay.
Let's go from the beaches of Australia to the gritty streets of Victorian London.
All right, I'm there.
Okay. So this is about a new show on Disney Plus called 1,000 Blows.
Okay.
And it's a boxing drama,
Awesome.
but it's set in the 1880s.
Cool.
But
Boxing, but make it historical.
yes, I love it.
Okay.
And it has a star-studded cast. Malachi Kirby, Aaron Doherty, Stephen Graham.
Oh, wow, that's a great cast.
It is a great cast. What I found really interesting is that it goes beyond the typical boxing narrative.
Okay.
So it's not just about the physical fight in the ring.
Right.
It's actually about these two Jamaican friends
Cool.
who are navigating a really brutal and unforgiving society
Right.
in Victorian London.
Yeah.
So it's about their resilience, it's about their brotherhood, it's about their struggle for survival in a world that is very much stacked against them.
Right. And boxing is almost like a metaphor for all of that.
Yeah.
It's not just about
Right.
winning the match. It's about winning at life.
Absolutely.
Overcoming these
Sense of all
obstacles that are in front of you. Yeah.
And I always love when stories explore how different cultures and communities intersect, especially in a historical period
Totally.
that we don't often see depicted.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about this one.
Me too.
So we've got Australian storytelling, and then we've got this gritty historical boxing drama.
Yeah.
But it's not all fun and games
No,
in the entertainment industry,
never.
right? There are some challenges happening
Always.
behind the scenes.
Behind the curtain, yes.
So, for example, the UK is becoming a global production hub,
Yeah.
which is great for their economy and for the industry as a whole.
Right.
But they're also facing this budget crisis
Oh, right.
when it comes to scripted television.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of projects that are stalling right now
Wow.
because they just don't have the budgets.
Yeah.
And industry leaders are starting to sound the alarm.
That's a little scary.
Yeah, it is a little scary. And so it's like this weird paradox where there are all these opportunities, but there's also like less money to go around.
Right.
So it's a really competitive
A very competitive landscape, yeah.
landscape for filmmakers and producers.
Yeah, well, especially because, like you said, there's a high demand for content right now.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people vying for
Yeah,
those limited resources.
absolutely. So that begs the question, what are independent filmmakers doing?
Yeah, how are they coping?
How are they navigating this really tough landscape?
Yeah.
And the news roundup had a really interesting story about how some independent filmmakers are actually embracing this like grassroots distribution
Oh, cool.
through traveling road tours.
So they're like taking their films on the road.
Yes.
Wow, that's really cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
So they're bypassing traditional distribution models
Yeah.
and they're taking their films directly to audiences.
Awesome.
And particularly in regions like the American Midwest and South,
Okay.
which are often overlooked by Hollywood and
Right.
major distributors. So
Yeah. So they're kind of like reclaiming your power in a way.
I think so.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And creating this really unique like community around their films.
Yeah, and that human connection, I think, is so important, especially in this digital world
Right.
that we live in.
Where everything feels
Exactly.
so fragmented.
So fragmented.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to like
Mm.
bring it back to the people.
Absolutely. It almost feels like a throwback
Yeah.
to the early days of cinema when
Yeah.
people would travel around with their films and
Yeah.
show them in these small towns.
I love that.
So it's like
It's really cool.
this really interesting, like, full circle moment
Yeah.
that's happening. So we have industry giants navigating this budget crisis,
Yeah.
but then we have these, like, scrappy independent filmmakers
Yeah.
who are forging their own path.
Finding new ways
Right.
to get their art out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really inspiring.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Are you ready for something a little darker?
Ooh, yes, always.
Okay, so let's talk about psychological horror. Because there were two projects in the news roundup this week that really kind of get under your skin in very different ways.
Oh, cool. I'm
Yeah.
intrigued already laid on me.
Okay, so the first one is called Vieja Loca,
Okay.
and it's an Argentinian film
Okay.
starring Carmen Maura.
Oh, wow.
She is fantastic.
She's an amazing actress.
She is.
Yeah.
And she plays this, like, senile mother
Okay.
who's being cared for by her ex-girlfriend's
Oh, wow.
son,
Okay.
but things take a very dark turn.
Oh, no.
And he basically finds himself trapped in this nightmare.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
So, like, trapped with the senile mother?
Basically.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And it's described as like this claustrophobic horror fable
Mm.
that explores like intergenerational violence.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how they explore that theme.
Yeah. And I'm really curious about how they're going to use the setting and like the atmosphere to
Yeah.
create that sense of unease.
Yeah, because psychological horror is all about that slow burn and, like, the dread that kind of creeps up on you.
Exactly. And then we have this completely different project that tackles these themes of like loss of control.
Okay.
But from a completely different angle. It's called The Man Who Could Not Remain Silent.
Wow.
And it's an Oscar-nominated short film
Okay.
about the Atripsi massacre during the Bosnian War.
Oh, wow.
And
That's heavy.
it is heavy. It's based on real events,
Yeah.
which makes it all the more chilling.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah, for sure.
And what struck me is that both of these projects,
Yeah.
though very different in their approach,
Yeah.
really tap into this like underlying fear of losing control.
Right.
Like whether it's losing control of your mind,
Right.
losing control of your freedom,
Yeah.
losing control of like your loved ones.
Right, or just, like, your circumstances in general.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really universal fear.
absolutely.
And I think psychological horror does a great job of
Exploiting it.
exploiting it. Yeah. Okay, let's lighten things up a bit.
Okay.
We've gone to some dark places.
Totally.
I want to talk about Adult Swim
Okay.
because they have a new animated series called Common Side Effects, and it sounds bonkers.
I'm ready.
Okay, so imagine a scientist discovers this rare hallucinogenic mushroom
All right.
with healing powers,
Okay.
but then they become like the target of big pharma and the government.
So, like a conspiracy thriller?
Yes.
Okay.
Mixed with like dark comedy.
That sounds very Adult Swim.
It does, right.
Yeah.
And it's created by Joseph Bennett and Steve Healy,
Okay.
who you might recognize
Ah,
from shows like Scavenger's Reign and Veep.
yeah, those are both great.
They are great. And
Right.
so I just love that Adult Swim has carved out this like really distinct niche in the animation world
Absolutely.
where they're not afraid to
Push the
give a
boundaries
boundary.
and like be a little weird
Yeah.
and, embrace the surreal and
Yeah.
address mature themes. And
So I'm excited to see what they do with common side effects.
me too.
Okay. We've covered Australian stories.
Yeah.
We've covered historical boxing.
We've covered
We've covered
logical horror,
industry challenges.
Adult Swim.
Adult Swim.
What else is there?
There's more.
Okay.
So get ready for some rapid fire insights.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk about some executive moves
Okay.
and some upcoming festival buzz.
Awesome. I'm ready.
Buckle up.
I'm buckled. All right. So executive moves and festival buzz.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Ah.
So first up, we have Karen Vermeulen.
Okay.
She was appointed head of development and executive producer at Flying Bark Productions, which is an Australian animation studio.
Okay.
And she has a ton of experience working in both kids and adult animation,
Awesome.
which is really cool.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they have in development that I'm really excited about is an animated series
Okay.
based on Sean Tan's Tales from Outer Suburbia.
Oh, cool.
Have you ever read that book? I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah,
It's
man.
like these really quirky and imaginative stories, and I think it'll lend itself really well to animation.
Totally. And especially with someone like Karen at the helm,
Right.
who has experience in both
Yeah.
those areas.
I'm very excited about that one. And then another interesting executive move is Robin Gladman.
Okay.
He's a children's media veteran.
Okay.
And he recently left Aardman Animations,
Oh, wow.
which is the studio behind Wallace and Gromit,
Yeah.
and he joined Locksmith Animation.
Cool.
So it seems like animation studios are really like trying to snag.
The best people.
Yeah.
All the talent.
All the best people, all the best talent.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. The animation is
Boom.
booming, yeah,
Right. It's huge.
across all platforms.
Exactly.
It makes sense that they're
You need good people.
trying to get the best people.
Okay, let's move on to festivals.
Okay.
There were two big ones mentioned in the news roundup. The First Look Festival at the Museum of the Moving Image
Okay.
in New York, and then the European Film Market at the Berlinale in Germany.
Cool.
And so I'm curious, from your perspective, what are some of the things that we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, I think at first, look, it would be interesting to check out the opening film, which is Bonjour Tristesse
Okay.
by Durga Chubose.
Okay.
This is her directorial debut.
Oh, cool.
And, she's a writer and a cultural critic.
Cool.
So I think it would be really interesting to see how that translates to film.
Yeah, I love when people who are already so talented in one creative field branch out into another.
So
And then the closing film is Diciannove by Giovanni Tortorici.
okay.
And it's an Italian drama
Cool.
that has been generating some buzz on the festival circuit.
Awesome.
What about at the European film market?
So at the European film market, it seems like there's a lot of action and horror this year.
Okay.
Wife and Dog is one that caught my attention.
Mm-hmm.
It stars Benedict Cumberbatch and Rosamund Pike.
Oh, wow.
I know.
That's a good pairing.
Right. And then there's Bad Boy, starring Ke Huy Quan and Lily Reinhardt.
Oh, cool.
Two very different
Very different vibes.
action movies.
Yeah,
But I'm here for both.
absolutely.
And then, of course, we can't forget Mother Mary,
Oh, yes.
which stars Anne Hathaway and Michaela Coel.
What a duo.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And that's being described as like a pop music epic.
Okay.
So very different from the action thriller vibe.
Yeah, completely different.
But I mean, when you've got Anne Hathaway and Michaela Coel,
Yeah, you're there.
I'm there
You're watching.
for sure.
So it seems like festivals are still a really important part
Oh, absolutely.
of like the entertainment ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a great way for filmmakers
Yeah.
to showcase their work and to network with other filmmakers and potential collaborators and
Yeah.
really just like find their audience,
Yeah, find their people.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to shift gears for a second and talk about something that was in the trends section of the news roundup.
Okay.
That really stood out to me. And it was this like tension between familiarity and innovation when it comes to like primetime entertainment formats.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a tough balance for networks
Right.
to strike because audiences crave both of
Yeah.
those things,
Yeah, they want the comfort of something that they recognize,
Yeah.
but they also want something new.
Totally.
And so it seems like the industry is kind of grappling with how to do both.
Right. Well, and that's reflected in the kind of content we're seeing.
Right.
You know, we're seeing a lot of reboots and revivals.
Yes.
Like the Frasier revival is happening. There's a King of the Hill reboot in the works.
I did not know about that. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah,
And then you have...
But then you have the streaming platforms.
Yeah.
That are really like pushing the boundaries with new formats.
Right.
Like Black Mirror, the Bandersnatch was...
That was a game changer.
It was, right.
Yeah.
It was so cool.
Yeah.
And The Circle.
Like, they're doing some really interesting things.
Very innovative.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it is hard.
It is hard.
To come up with a new format.
It is.
And have it be successful.
Especially because there's so much content being produced.
Yeah.
It's hard to break through the noise.
It really is.
Yeah.
It is. So I'm curious to see what happens in the next few years with this kind of tension.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. So there's one thing that I wanted to touch on before we move on.
Yeah.
Because it was mentioned briefly in the news roundup, and I just kind of wanted to acknowledge it.
Okay.
It's the impact of the recent wildfires on Hollywood professionals.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that's something that's been weighing on a lot of people's minds.
Yeah. And I mean, it really just highlights the vulnerability of the entertainment industry.
Absolutely.
Because these are real people with real lives.
Yeah.
And when natural disasters strike, it can affect them just like it affects anyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's really sad. It is sad. And it makes you realize that Hollywood isn't all glitz and glamour.
Yeah, it's not all red carpets and award shows.
Right.
There's a human side to it, too.
There is a very human side to it.
Absolutely.
Okay. I did want to mention the expansion of the Wonder Women initiative to Manchester.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, that's really cool.
And they're doing some really great work supporting women in the television and creative industries.
Yeah, super important work.
Yeah, and there's going to be this big Wonder Women event in Manchester with some really incredible speakers.
Awesome.
Like Nicola Schindler, Lorraine Heggessy, Nadine Marsh-Edwards.
Yeah, they're all powerhouses.
They are.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad to see that initiative expanding.
Me too.
Okay, are you ready for more rapid-fire insights?
Yes, bring it on. I'm ready.
Okay. We're going to cover some development news, some deals, and some renewals.
Okay.
Before we wrap things up.
Sounds good.
Okay. So we're back, and we're going to hit the renewals section. And there's only one this week, but it's a big one.
All right, let's hear it.
More Aussie Shore.
Oh, there it is. More sun and sand.
Exactly.
More drama.
I knew it was coming.
I mean, you kind of can't go wrong with reality TV right now.
It's such a strong performer.
It is.
Especially for streamers.
Yeah, and it's pretty cheap to produce.
Totally.
Relatively speaking.
Yeah.
So
it has that built-in audience.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And I think especially like with a show like Aussie Shore, that's part of a bigger franchise.
Yeah.
It taps into that global fascination.
Absolutely.
But then it has like the local flavor.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best of both worlds.
It is. It's kind of like the perfect recipe.
It is.
For reality TV.
Tried and true.
So congrats to the cast and crew of Aussie Shore.
Yeah, congrats.
Okay, let's talk about development news.
Yes.
Because there were a few projects that really stood out to me.
One of them is Sky New Zealand.
Good.
They have some interesting stuff in development.
Yeah.
Including a psychological thriller called The Ridge.
Cool.
And a female buddy cop dramedy called Bust Up.
Okay. I'm already interested.
Right.
Yeah.
It just sounds fun.
Yeah, and Sky New Zealand has been killing it lately.
They have.
With their original content.
Yeah. So I'm very excited to see what they do with these.
Me too.
Okay. So some casting news.
Right?
Marina Baccarin and Hawker Johannesson joined the cast of Masters of the Universe.
Wow.
So that cast is already stacked.
Stacked with talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anne Hathaway, Michaela Cole.
Yeah.
It's going to be good.
It's going to be epic.
It is going to be epic.
I'm calling it now.
Okay, so this next one I'm a little bit hesitant about.
Okay.
But we'll see how it goes.
Lay it on me.
It's Prime Video.
Okay.
And they're jumping on the high school dating show.
Bandwagon. Okay.
It's called Sweethearts.
All right.
And it's produced by the same team behind Love is Blind.
Oh, wow. So they're really going for it.
They are.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can create as much drama.
Right.
And as many meme-worthy moments as Love is Blind.
Yeah. And those are big shoes to fill.
They are big shoes to fill.
Oh, sure.
But, you know, high school romance.
Yeah, there's always an audience for that.
Always an audience.
Yeah.
Okay, what about Louis Theroux?
Oh, is there a new Louis Theroux project?
There is.
Okay, I'm here for it.
Okay, so he's doing a new BBC documentary.
Okay.
and it looks like he's heading to the West Bank.
Wow, that's cool.
So knowing Luis is going to be like a really interesting,
Yeah, thought-provoking
exploration of a complex
for sure.
region.
Absolutely.
Okay, we got to talk about the Real Screen Summit.
Yeah.
Because there was some really cool stuff happening there.
Yeah, I always love hearing about Real Screen.
Me too.
It's such a great event.
It is.
For unscripted content.
Yes. And so they had this Formagination competition.
Yeah.
And the winning format was Opposites Attract. And it's a social experiment dating show.
Interesting.
That basically challenges our assumptions about relationships.
So kind of like Love is Blind, but like...
Yeah, but like with a different twist.
Yeah.
And the company behind it, 1066, won up to $25,000 for development.
Wow, that's awesome.
So it sounds like it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm excited about that one.
Me too.
Okay. Deep breath.
Deep breath.
Because we're going to hit the deals section.
Right, hit me.
Yeah.
Let's go.
First up,
Okay.
Rima Das's Village Rockstars 2
Great.
has secured Diversion as the global sales agent
Cool.
ahead of its debut at the European film market in Berlin.
Awesome.
So the original Village Rockstars was like a huge critical darling.
Oh, yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited that the sequel is like getting this international attention.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so Australia's 7 Network is extending their content deal with WTFN
Okay.
to expand the Great Home Ideas brand. So they're planning to create all these new lifestyle shows for international distribution.
Lifestyle content is such a solid performer.
Yeah.
You know?
People love it.
People love it, yeah.
So I'm sure this will be successful.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the series Super Things, Rivals of Kaboom,
Okay.
has secured new broadcasting deals across Europe,
Wow.
including ITVX in the UK, Goli in France, Panda in Portugal, Cartonito in Germany, Switzerland, Eastern Europe, and Benelux.
That's impressive.
I know, right? That is a lot of territories.
That is global domination for
Yeah.
an animated series.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cricket Media has acquired Sensical,
Okay.
which is a children's streaming platform developed by Common Sense Networks.
So they're really getting into the children's streaming game.
They are.
Okay.
And it makes sense, right? Like, kids are such a huge market,
Yeah.
and parents are always looking for, like,
Yeah, quality content.
quality content.
That's safe.
That's safe.
And educational.
Exactly. So yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what they do with this.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, so Fox Corporation has acquired Red Seat Ventures,
Okay.
which is a digital media company
Okay.
that's known for producing podcasts with former Fox News personalities.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they're getting into the podcasting game.
They are.
Yeah.
It's like everybody is trying to get into podcasting right now.
Yeah, well, it's a smart move.
Yeah.
Podcasting is huge.
Huge.
And it's only growing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good move for them.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. 2 more.
Okay.
CAA Media Finance and producer Jean-Felix Dilberto have teamed up
Okay.
for global sales of the Argentine thriller After This Death.
Cool.
And last but not least,
Okay.
Paramount Plus has commissioned additional seasons of Aussie Shore.
Of course. I know.
I love it.
We had to end on that note.
Had to.
What a whirlwind.
It has been a whirlwind.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground.
We did.
It's amazing how much happens
In a week.
in just 1 week.
Yeah.
So I think we've successfully broken down the news roundup.
I think we did it.
I think we did
I
it.
think we did a great job.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Echo, thank you for having me.
This was so much fun.
Yeah, this was a blast.
And thank you to all of our listeners.
Yes. Thank you for listening.
Be sure to check out the show notes for links to all the projects we talked about.
Absolutely.
And until next time, happy watching.
Happy watching.